one of the themes of what you're talking about here is kind of navigating the distractions. Um, because you were talking about how you know what it takes, you've seen what it takes, and you can tell when there's some pitfalls that are going to pull you away. And I feel like when you see players doing that or getting away from it, you right away want to yank them back and not let them go down the path. And I think like some of the key distractions for hockey, and maybe it's different in other sports, but you can fill in the blank with your distraction. It's going to be no matter what, it's going to be uh, partying and all the things that come with that. So that's booze, that's drugs, that's chew, that's whatever other thing, and then there's girls. Those are the two: the partying and that umbrella category, and then girls. Those are the two, not even necessarily killers, but they can be a killer for a kid that thinks he wants to pursue some sports. So I think it's important that you know how to navigate that as the parent, um, to help your kid through some of those situations. And I'm just gonna lay this out right off the hop. The wrong strategy is never let them do any of it. That's the wrong strategy, because that's going to be a recipe for them hiding things from you. And I remember that with a lot of guys that I played with. And I'm very fortunate that my parents were both, particularly my mom, more on the strict side of like not letting me do certain things. But like you always say, they parented through my sports. So it made it easy for me to not care to do those things, to not care when I was in grade 10 to go to a party, or grade 11 to go party, or having a girlfriend as soon as I was in grade 7 and guys and girls start hanging out with each other. I didn't care about any of those things. It wasn't even on my radar, really. But I do remember getting the guilt trip about times where I'd be going to a social thing, or when I got my first girlfriend, or whatever those distractions are. So I remember my parents striking a pretty good balance of not going too much. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that they just could use hockey, or I could use hockey on myself. But from the parent perspective, to my question is like, from the parent perspective, how do you think about those types of issues, or kids getting pulled away by those types of things? And then where is your role as a parent in that? I don't want to say to keep them from doing it, but to not let them get too far off into the land of
Yep.
the extras.
Yeah, it's hard, man. I can't say that I have my example has worked pretty good so far, but that's I've seen other people who's like for me, be honest with you, my first two kids, um, zero tolerance on anything, zero, and one of them was fine, and he knew he was smart enough how to sneak out and do his thing, and never gave us a problem. And another was like it was a nightmare every goddamn day. And so you had two kids, two different results. You had one that was like, oh yeah, that's cool, and knew how to speak to mom and get through things and do his thing and come back the next day and like, yeah, I did it, or bullshit, and you couldn't really give him shit about it because it was like whatever. And then the other was it was a problem every time. It was like a
And it was the
nightmare.
same parenting style.
Same,
Yeah.
exact same. So one just refused to know and she knew exactly why, right? Why. And then thankful today. And then we have my youngest one that I've learned from both of them, but the circumstances are so different as well. So here's an example, okay? I I know I'm going to sound one way or another. Someone's going to say this is bad or you're a wiener. But for me, I don't want my kids drinking until they're of legal age. That's crazy. But that's actually what I want. Don't bug me with it. Don't drink around me. Don't do any of that stuff around me. I don't want it. But then as my youngest is coming through and he's a hockey player and all this stuff, it's like he sees me. You stop at my house. What do we do? What's the first thing we do?
Crack a beer.
You having a beer? Yeah. He, like anybody on the outside, if you're looking at your dad who you actually thinks pretty cool and want to be like my dad and his cool friends, everything we do is usually around a couple beers. and he's going to move away with the same friends that I have, and I'm going to sit there and say, "Don't ever have a beer." I don't want you to, and it might ruin your next day or whatever. But whatever. So the next problem I had was, and I was joking with him and Seabass one day, and I was explaining to them how what I thought. So it's always about conversation, right? So I was telling them, we're in the car one day, and I said, guys, like, it's who you do these stupid things with. Because if you go to a party somewhere and you're the outsider, or you're the cool guy, or people want to get you, or whatever, it doesn't matter. You don't know who's got your back and who doesn't. Whereas if I came back, and this is what the conversation was, and if I was out of town and you guys were in the backyard on June 27th, and I came back and there was 18 beer bottles or 12 beer bottles on the in the backyard, I wouldn't be thrilled, but I'd say, well, you did it together and you got each other's back, no harm done. So they're both sitting in the back seat. Well, Seabass goes, June 27th.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, I really thought about it. I was looking at my kid. I said, you know what? We're gonna have a couple beers today. And he was like, and it was a couple. And there was two reasons I did it. One was to sit there and say, you and I can have a beer together. It's not going to kill either of us. It's actually going to make it kind of okay. It's not going to be a shit show. We're going to have a couple beers. The other thing was to just see if he could tolerate it and where he goes when he has them. You know what? I was pleasantly surprised. I had a great time. So I don't make it a habit, but we every now and then go have a couple beers together. And it's kind of like cool because I know he's going to do it anyways. But it was a good relationship because it helped our relationship because, like I said, he's looking at, like, he knows I know his culture and he knows that I know the culture. He knows who I am. He knows who I am. He asked me in the dressing room, he's explained some guys, which one are you, Dad? I go, oh, is that one or that one? And he just laughs. He goes, yeah, I know, I can tell. So for me to sit there and don't ever do that doesn't make any sense. So it's about teaching the process. Now I got away from that a little bit, but it's like we've been talking about stuff since I can remember. We would talk about coffee. We talked about chew. We talked about reading people. We talked about just everything, booze, and what it can do for you. So it was like it was a pretty healthy relationship going in. Anyways, talked about girls. He said, well, did you have a girlfriend in junior? I said, yeah, I did. I said, and actually for me, it was probably good because you know me, Charlie. I said, I can have a lot of fun. Like, I like being with the guys and stuff like that. So having a girlfriend kind of kept me a little bit away from the guys all the time. So there was a good side of it. And there was many good sides to it. And then there was other times where it was like, hey, listen, you pain in the ass. I went with the boys. You know what I mean? But it was good for me. So like, it's understanding, like, you don't want to be, you got to be able to say no once in a while, and teaching the kids that the fear of missing out. So it's like those little nuggets of always asking them what they want. And this is like part of the communication thing. It's not always telling them, it's asking questions. If you ask enough questions, they're going to come up with their own solutions. And then you can actually turn the tables on them if you want and say, well, you were saying this, son, right?
Yeah, and I remember for me, like I said, my parents were more strict, and my dad never did what you did. Like my dad still, like, they're not drinkers, they're not into any of that stuff, and I never was either, just because those were my parents, so that makes sense. But when it came to the hockey culture now I'm going into this world that I don't know, and I don't have the resource or the guidance from an older brother or my dad or someone that's close to me to see. And I remember, though, my parents did a pretty good job of not making me personally feel like I needed to hide things. And I think there was to a degree with them, because they were on the more strict side, maybe I didn't fully tell them exactly what was going on, but they knew like 90% of where I was going to be, what was going on, who was there, those kinds of things. They made me feel comfortable enough to share that with them without getting in shit. So I remember my first rookie party, when it would have been the same. I would have been 16 or whatever. And it was like, Ma, I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I have to go to this party.
Yeah.
I'm going to be drinking.
Yeah.
It is
might
what
lose
it
an
is.
arm.
And it was, yeah. And it was nice because I actually didn't have a choice. If it almost gave me no choice but to tell her, And like, because my dad didn't care as much, but my mom cared more. She was the one, she's the one that worries about it. And it made me feel comfortable enough where, or it kind of forced my hand where I had to tell her. And now I'm 16. We've already talked about this. And now for the rest of my junior career, I'm not shying away from talking to you guys about the reality of what is happening, more or less, you know? Like I don't have to get into the graphic detail of what's happening where maybe somebody like you would understand and they would be like, "What are you talking about?" You know? But for the most part, they made me feel that. And I think it's important for parents to have some of that where you're not so strict that kids feel like they have to hide. And I even have that with the guys that are in here because I have them on really strict workout programs, meal plans, and all that. And I was talking to two of the boys last week and I was telling them, like, the most important thing to make the relationship work is that you're honest. Because if I don't know what you're doing, then I can't adjust my program to fit your needs. So I try to give them the feeling like they can talk to me about they went out with the boys and had some beers, or they stayed out way too late, or whatever they did.
They eat Doritos every night.
Yeah, ate Doritos or whatever. Whatever they did that they weren't supposed, whatever that means, they weren't supposed to do based on the plan that they have for themselves. And so I think parents are, for the most part, I'm sure they tend to the side of the strict, like, we're not doing that. But having said that, I've also seen parents that are complete opposite end, where it's like anything goes, it's no problem.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a good thing either.
Well,
right?
the thing with it is like you don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you really don't. So like I think I think the best thing is you just have a good relationship with your kid. The better relationship that is, I think the more that you can have, like your parents can trust you, you can trust your parents. I think that's really really important. So like, because I've seen very recent and very close hands, I've seen a kid give up hockey because of his girl. Done. Like, what? I look at my kid and he goes, what? Like, why would you ever do that for a girl? You know where that's going to end up? Nowhere. I've seen several of my friends drink themselves out of the game, several, and other things, right? Or not give a shit. Like, something went sideways. That those parents could have been one, yeah, let's have a beer together, or the other, you're never having a beer around me and don't ever do it. And you might get one that turns out exactly the way you want, and it one might go the opposite way. So there's no right recipe. I think the real key to it is you have a really good relationship with your kid. And for me, it was always, we talk about everything all the time. And so just like with the drinking, or even with the girlfriends, like I would say to them, like I know maybe a lot of people might even think you're inappropriate conversations to have with your kid, but I would when he was young, I'd say, "What'd you think of that guy?" And he'd judge them, and I liked it because he learned how to read people. He would notice early in his life that someone was just so in love, and he would go like, "Dad," I go, Charlie, it could happen. But then we have that conversation. Yeah, it could happen. Like you don't know. Like, why would that happen, Dad? Like, you're a little kid, right? Well, because like I give him reasons and stuff. But he could play hockey, or like that's all he does is spend time with his girlfriend. Oh yeah, fun, eh? It could be seeing someone that's just, because you've seen some of my friends, just buckled into the funniest guy, loudest people in the place, and they're just hilarious. And Charlie's seen that firsthand from a young age to another age, and he goes, "Man, this guy, it was so funny, right?" And I go, "Yeah, but let's put this in perspective. Do you want to be that guy, right?" And then like he was able to see a little bit. So then the next piece of it was for him and and I don't know if I don't know how many people can do this, but for me it was he loved hockey, like from a young age. So from a young age, I think you can do this. It's like, how much do you love it? So what you try to do, as we said several times, is you build the why up as big as you possibly can. So that everything you want to do is so that you can be a hockey player, and that's not a bad thing, right? Because if you want to be a great hockey player, like for kids, it's like, in order to be a good hockey player, you have to do well in school and these other things to fall in line so you can have your dream. So you build that dream as big as you can, and that's the thing you can always parent against or with, right? So like when it comes down to oh, I need to go to this party. The guys are doing this. It's like, okay, that's cool. Like, what about this? And then if that's big enough, then the other things don't matter quite as much,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I got three things just from backtracking a little bit. One of the things you said before was um, it's kind of about who you do the stupid things with, because all kids are going to do something stupid at some point. And if they're with a good group of people that do a stupid thing together, then it's probably going to be significantly less damaging than if they do it in the wrong environment. And that's why we always stress that environment piece so much. And when you have a team of good kids or something to center them, it's like when they decide to do something stupid together because they're going to, at least they're with kids that have their best interest, or yeah, have their backs. They're not going to get booted in the face because they're at some party with a bunch of randoms that they don't know, or kids that don't care about anything and they're just willing to get in shit all the time. So I think that's an important thing. And then the other part that you were talking about from the parenting perspective is, it's not, one thing is that it's not about being a perfect parent, of course, can't be, and it's not all on you either. That's another thing to remember. And hopefully, because we're talking about a lot of different things and there's never a right answer, so it can still be kind of confusing to know, like, hey, should I talk to them about this or should I not? How much should I say? How much should I not say? How much detail should they get at this age versus this age? And there's all those questions, and there isn't really a right answer because it kind of depends on the kid. So it's what you said is really, I think, is important, so that you don't drive yourself nuts as a parent, is that there's a certain amount of it that you just don't have control over as a parent, because at the end of the day, they're going to be at school for 6 hours a day when you're not there. They're going to be at their hockey tournament or with their buddies 3 hours a day at hockey, or however long they're there, where you have no say in what goes on there. And those things are going to influence them just like you influence them when they're with you. So I think that if that can give you, as a parent, a little bit of breathing room where you don't feel like it's every single thing you do is 100% going to make you responsible for how your kid turns out, you're not that responsible for it. There is a portion of it, and a significant portion of it, that you won't have control over, just because there's so much time that they're going to spend away from you, being influenced by other things. And that's okay. It's okay that happens, but you just want to try to do the best that you can. And that's what it's all about. It's just, you're doing the best that you can do with the information. It's not that there's a right answer or a wrong answer or whatever. Just take these principles that we talk about, and hopefully you can pull out what makes sense for your situation and use it. It's not that, we're saying you need to be a perfect parent or you can't make a mistake, or what you do will be the determining factor of how your kid turns out. There's some parents I know that are amazing and their kids are assholes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. Like,
and
I can't explain
some idiots that have incredible kids.
Yeah, right.
I know.
So it's like you just can't explain some of that stuff. So don't get too hung up on every single little thing, even though we're talking about every single little thing.
And one of the things is a phone too, right? That's a huge distraction. It's it's hard. And the other thing is, like, being relatable, right? Because everyone says, well, we didn't have that when we were kids, and no, we didn't. But I don't know, we do now. So if you're gonna give a kid shit for playing NHL or something like that, it's like, it's TV. It's kinda, maybe it's better. I don't know. I think if you do that all day, every day, that's a bad thing. But I think if you do it once in a while, I think it's could be healthy. I don't know. Being on the phone all the time, like, I show me an adult that's not on their phone all the time now. Can't really give your kids shit.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the other part too, just from my side, because I've been talking a lot about parenting things, and we mentioned this before, I'm not a parent. I don't have kids. So I'm trying to bring from the perspective of what I hear kids talk about and how I see them behave, because I'm the person that's with them when you're not with them. So I'm giving you what I hear and what they say and what they're focusing on from that side of it. So just keep that in mind too. I'm not coming from the perspective of, this is what I do with my kid. It's like, this is what I do with your kids when you're not here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So